Take a look at this number, 10 million. By the year 2050, that's how many people could die every single year from superbugs. You know, those bacterial infections that our best antibiotics just can't touch anymore. It's a massive number, and it means the very tools that modern medicine was built on are starting to fail. We are in a standoff with a threat that's constantly evolving, and our old playbook, it's just not cutting it.
So, what if the answer isn't just about scrambling to find some new miracle drug? What if it's about finding a completely new way to fight back? That's exactly what we're going to dig into today. We're looking at a brand new playbook for this superbug standoff, one that uses physics to give our old chemical tricks a powerful, powerful new edge. All right, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to really understand the standoff we're in. Then, we'll bring in a totally new kind of ally. After that, we'll dive into how you can find a pathogen's unique fingerprint, which lets you launch a three-pronged attack. And finally, we'll see how it all comes together to mean less drug for way more power. Let's get into it.
So let's set the stage. Antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, isn't some problem for the future. It is right here, right now. You see, every single time we use an antibiotic, we're basically giving bacteria a chance to learn, to evolve defenses. And the scary part is, they are learning way, way faster than we are discovering new drugs to fight them.
And here's the bottom line. The pipeline for brand new antibiotics is pretty much running dry. That whole strategy of just, replacing an old drug with a new one, it's just not working anymore. So the challenge has to shift. Instead of hoping for another silver bullet, the real question is, can we make the weapons we already have smarter, more effective? And this is where things get really interesting. This brings us to a pretty radical new idea. What if we brought in an ally from a totally different field of science? The whole approach we're talking about uses the rules of physics to create what's called an adjunct therapy, basically a helper for the chemical drugs we've relied on for decades. So an adjunct therapy isn't meant to do the job all on its own. It's kind of like a spotter for a weightlifter, right? The spotter doesn't lift the weight for you, but they make the whole effort a lot safer and way more effective. In this case, the idea is to use these super carefully tuned energy fields, not to kill the bacteria, but to make them way more vulnerable to the antibiotics we're already using.
And I really want to stress that term, ultra low. We are not talking about cooking the pathogens or blasting them with energy. This is non-thermal. We're talking about subtle electromagnetic or acoustic fields that are so gentle they don't even heat up the tissue around them. The goal here is all about precision, not brute force. It's about subtly weakening the enemy's defenses before the main attack even begins. Okay, but how in the world do you get that kind of precision? How do you zap the bad guys without bothering the healthy cells right next to them? Well, the secret is finding the pathogen's unique physical fingerprint using a method called the Harmonic Scale Framework. The core idea here is absolutely fascinating. Just think about it like tuning a radio. Every single cell in your body and every bacterium kind of vibrates a response to different physical frequencies that each have their own radio station. And the key insight is that the stations the pathogens are tuned into are completely different from the ones our own healthy cells are listening to. And this right here just lays out the whole strategy perfectly. Because our cells and the pathogen cells have these different response windows, we can design an energy field that only broadcasts on the pathogen's channel. We can selectively mess with the bad guys while our own cells don't even notice. It is literally the physical equivalent of a precision-guided missile. So to find that signature, this framework looks at 3 different channels. First is K1, the mechanics, so the actual physical vibrations of the cell structure. Then there's K2, which is electromagnetism, how the cell's outer layer reacts to electric fields. And K3 is really cool. It's the collective behavior, the rhythm of a whole colony of bacteria working together. You measure all 3 and you get a unique, targetable fingerprint. So you've found the frequency, you've tuned in, what happens next? Well, the strategy launches this 3-pronged attack that, remember, doesn't kill the bacteria directly, but it just systematically takes apart its defenses. Okay, first up, you boost drug uptake. These tuned energy fields basically poke little holes in the bacterial cell wall, making it more porous. This opens up more gateways for the antibiotic to just flood inside. And obviously, more drug inside the cell means a much more effective kill, even if you're using a lower dose overall. Second, you weaken their fortress.
A lot of nasty bacteria create these things called biofilms. They're like these slimy, protective shields that are incredibly hard for antibiotics to get through. Well, these targeted fields can actually shake up the structure of that gel, opening up channels for the drugs to get to the bacteria hiding deep inside.
And the third prong, and this is pretty amazing, is you can supercharge other allies. We're talking about phages. These are viruses that are natural-born bacteria hunters. They're already a really promising area of research. And it turns out these energy fields can help get all the phages to attack at the same time, basically coordinating their assault for a way faster, more efficient takedown.
Now, this all sounds fantastic in theory, right? But how do you actually turn this into a real-world treatment? This next part is all about the practical promise and the super rigorous, testable plan to actually make it happen. The proposed clinical plan is really clear and methodical. Step 1, you measure the infection to find its specific physical fingerprint. Step 2, you tune a device to broadcast on that exact frequency. Step 3, you apply that gentle field right before and during the antibiotic treatment. And finally, step 4, you analyze the results and measure exactly how much more effective that drug just became. And this isn't just wishful thinking. The research lays out specific, testable predictions, claims that you can actually go out and prove right or wrong in an experiment. The goal is to cut the antibiotic dose needed by 20 to 30%, slash that tough biofilm resistance by over 30%, and speed up phage therapy by at least 15%. These are real, concrete goals for success. And of course, safety is absolutely key. The fields are non-thermal, so there's no dangerous heating. We're talking less than 1/10 of a degree Celsius. They're also non-excitatory, so they won't mess with your nerves or muscles. But what's really crucial here from a scientific standpoint is that it's falsifiable. The plan includes a null control, basically a test where you purposely use the wrong frequency. If the theory is right, absolutely nothing should happen, which is a fantastic way to prove that the targeting is real.
You know, it's worth mentioning that this whole strategy comes from a much bigger picture, a broader model called the Harmonic Scale Framework. At its heart, it's a new way of looking at the physical world, not just as particles, but as a whole series of interacting waves and frequencies. The point is, this medical idea isn't just a one-off trick. It's the first practical application of a really deep, new model of physics. And that brings us to what might be the single most important takeaway from all of this. This is not about replacing antibiotics. It's about upgrading them. Think of it like someone just handed our doctors a brand new control panel with knobs for frequency, phase, and timing, letting them fine-tune our attack on bacteria with a level of precision we've never had before. So we'll leave you with this question, a question that kind of reframes the whole problem. For the last 100 years, the fight against infection has been a story about chemistry. But as that story hits a really tough chapter, maybe, just maybe, the next great leap forward won't come from a test tube at all, but from learning how to tune in to the fundamental physics of life itself.